Important mock drafts of the year dropped today, and we gotta talk about it because it has a very interesting scenario laid out for the Cowboys, particularly on offense. So, without any further ado, let's get right into it on tonight's episode of A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. Do me a favor and hit the like button if you haven't yet. That puts the show in front of more and more Cowboys fans, and it is the single biggest thing you can do to help out the show. So, without any further ado, let's get it started. Here we go. What is up, everybody, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network with a lot more content coming your way. Make sure that you check out atozsports.com/Dallas. And as always, remember that Primetime is brought to you by our friends over at FreemanMazda.net. We will talk more about them and the ride of the week in a few moments here on the show. But before we do any of that, though, let me know in the chat, what do you think about what I'm about to say? What do you think about this possibility? From 1 to 10, how possible do you think it is for the Cowboys to go back to back to back offensive picks in the 2023 NFL draft? Obviously, we know that the Cowboys have a very solid defense. I would say elite over the last couple of years. They've led the league in takeaways. First time since the steel curtain that happened. So let me know in the chat from 1 to 10, how likely is it for the Cowboys to go back to back to back offensive picks? 3 offensive players in the 2023 NFL draft in the first 3 rounds. Let me know in the chat. What do you think about that? Shout out to the people, by the way, joining the show. We've got Gregory, we've got Toxic Tom, Stephen White, Katharina, as always, on Facebook, Jeff, Charlie, and Evans, Blue Dabs saying, hopefully Mo's 16th birthday cake will be an ice cream cake. This is Blue Dabs. Okay, let's see some of your answers here. Andrew just said yes. So let's take that as a 10. I hope so, says Stephen White. Katharina goes with an 8. Toxic Tom says 10. We are taking 3 tight ends in a row. Holly says 3. Open it up, says Andrew. Jeff goes with 0. Very likely, says Bruce. Gregory goes with 1. I would say 8, says Ines. Gilbert goes with 8. Pretty high numbers. I'm going to go with a low one. I'm going to go with maybe something like, I'm going to go with a 4. And this is not against taking offensive players at all. It would just be like the board has to fall a certain way for that to happen in the first place. So I'm going to go with a 4 just because I think that it is unlikely for the board to fall in a way in which you are completely convinced about taking back-to-back offensive players. Like, this is not only about who do you want, what needs do you want to address, it's also about what the other 31 NFL teams do in the first place. So I'm going to go with a 4. However, I'm bringing this question up because this is exactly what happened in the latest ESPN mock draft. And it is a good one because this is not Todd McShay making all the picks by himself or MEl Kiper making all the picks by himself. Instead, it is the two of them alternating pick to pick for the first, second, and third round of the 2023 NFL draft. And in it, they've got the Cowboys doing exactly that. I called it the Texas mock draft on atozsports.com because they take 2 TCU players. By the way, you might start guessing who these 2 guys are because you could be talking about Steve Abila. You could be talking about Quentin Johnson, maybe Kendra Miller, the running back, maybe somebody else we have not discussed too much. But in this case, the Cowboys go with a wide receiver in the first round. That is Quentin Johnson. And I kind of like this pick. I've gone back and forth on it. I don't I don't know if he's like, a guy that was very consistent on tape. I think there were several body catches in his tape too in TCU. One of the few players that I watched during this whole process. You guys know that I'm not a big draft guy that watches every single prospect, but Quentin Johnson I watched, and he does seem a little bit like he has this boom or bust kind of collegiate season, at least in 2022. Some very good games, some very bad moments as well. But what you like about Quentin Johnson, what you should like about Quentin Johnson if the Cowboys end up picking him, and I do believe he has to go in the first round in order for this to take place. But what I like about it is the fact that he's got the size. We've talked a lot about Jonathan Mingo on this show because he was one of the first known 30 visits for the Cowboys, and he's a name that has been rising consistently as we get closer and closer to the 2023 NFL draft. One of the reasons why Mingo could go in the second round, and some people say that he might even be a first round shocker towards the end of the first round, is the fact that Mingo has got the size. And if you look at this wide receiver class, size is very short in supply. So the demand for size is going to be pretty high this year in the NFL draft. And Quentin Johnson brings you that. He brings that to the table. If you want to have a pass catcher that can win vertically, that can win these 50-50 balls and can have that catch radius, Quentin Johnson might be your guy, even with the body catches, right? So Quentin Johnson, I would say, good pick for the Cowboys there. Let's keep in mind that McShay is right in line with the whole thing of, the Cowboys are going to have none other than Michael Mayer in there if he's available. Brugler has a tight end for the Cowboys, McShay as well, Kiper as well. I'm actually not sure about McShay on his own. But yeah, the point is, many insiders believe the Cowboys are going to lean tight end if one is there at 26th. Talking about Meyer specifically, I think he's the one that we've heard about the most. Dane Brugler mocked him to the Cowboys as well today, and his comment was, as one source said it, if Meyer is there, I don't see the Cowboys passing on him. So Quentin Johnson at number 26. The Cowboys do get a tight end, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. I don't want to make you all dizzy, so if you want to close your eyes, that's fine. But I'm going to go all the way down to pick number 56, which is the next time that the Cowboys are on the clock. A lot of big names off the board by then. Drew Sanders, John Michael Smith. And now the Cowboys get, pick 58, I meant. Now the Cowboys get Sam Laporta, tight end out of Iowa. Let me tell you something. Laporta is more of a receiving tight end than anything else. In fact, he was a 3-star wide receiver prospect out of high school going into college. And Iowa tight ends have had a pretty decent track record over the last few years in the NFL, adapting to the pros. Sam Laporta could be next in line, but he's a sure-handed catcher. He could have a very solid role on the Cowboys in his first season as a rookie tight end. And we've talked a lot about Jake Ferguson. We've talked a lot about Peyton Hendershot. You know where I stand there. Even though I loved what those two rookies did for Dallas last year, it is also very true that they did very little. Peyton Hendershot didn't have those production numbers. I mean, of course, he was tight end 3 essentially for Dallas. But Jake Ferguson, who we saw significantly more playing time from, still played 37% of the Cowboys 2022 snaps last year. So to assume that the Cowboys have the perfect replacement for Dalton Schultz if they don't draft somebody in this draft might be wishful thinking. That's where I stand, kind of like we know a little bit about Jake Ferguson, but we don't know enough. So do not rule out that the Cowboys might be looking at tight end as a much bigger need than what the fan base kind of is interpreting between the lines. So Sam Laporta could go to the Cowboys at 58th. Keep in mind, this is another riser as we get closer to the 2023 NFL draft. So he might not be there in the first place. But anyways, just so we can get through the first 3 picks that take this offense to another level, in my opinion, let's get all the way down to the 3rd round. When the Cowboys have the 90th pick, Cedric Tillman goes to the Cardinals here at 66. We see Tucker Kraft goes to the Raiders. Tucker Kraft can be like the poor man's Darnell Washington of this draft, in my opinion, because he's another guy with the athletic traits that you would be looking to develop, that you would be looking to turn into something special. But he's not as special athletically as Darnell Washington, who is out of this world. Luke Schoonmaker goes at 81st to the Lions. Anyways, the Cowboys already have their tight end. They already have their wide receiver. Now they get their number 2 running back. So just this would be quite controversial among Cowboys fans, because a lot of Cowboys fans are against the idea of taking a tight end. A lot of people are against the idea of taking a running back, Dak Prescott included. Maybe we'll get into that tonight as well towards the end of the show. But the Cowboys get Kendre Miller from TCU in this scenario. So that is 2 TCU players to the Cowboys. And obviously Miller would be like this explosive player that might not be very refined, especially in things like blocking, etc. But he could be a very decent number 2 behind Tony Pollard. And you would have some sort of insurance as well in there moving forward. Because as you guys know, Pollard is under the franchise tag. He already signed it. So there's no walking that back at all now. And now Dallas is in a position in which we don't know what will happen beyond 2023 with Tony Pollard. They paid a big contract to Zeke in 2019. They kind of regretted it. They had to live with the consequences of that for a while. So now we don't know just how aggressive their shift will be when it comes to veteran running back contracts. Like, what will they offer Tony Pollard? What will he be looking for in 2024 when he becomes an unrestricted free agent, if that happens in the first place? But my point being, we don't know how much longer Pollard is going to be around Dallas. And it would be kind of crazy to assume that he's a lock to stay in the long term. I don't think that is guaranteed at all. So if you take a running back in the 3rd round, you're probably thinking that Pollard is not going to be around for a lot longer, because salary cap wise and team building wise, it might not make a lot of sense to pay him a big contract. So that would be the mock draft from Kiper and McShay. We're going to kind of talk more about what this approach could look like. But you get a 1st round wide receiver in Quentin Johnson, 2nd round tight end in Sam Laporta from Iowa, and then Kendre Miller, running back from TCU, back-to-back offensive players. Listen, it might not happen. It might not happen exactly with these players too. But would you like or dislike this approach? Forget about the players specifically. Would you like or dislike an approach in which the Cowboys make back-to-back offensive picks and kind of try to build what they have realized can become a problem late in the year and what can become a problem against playoff defenses like the San Francisco 49ers defense that for 2 straight years has kind of punched the Cowboys in the mouth a little bit and has kind of made it evident that this is not a fulfilled offense yet. Let me know in the chat, what do you think about that? Would you like or dislike it? And before I get to that, and before I give you my answer, and before we move on to what Dak Prescott had to say about Ezekiel Elliott recently, let me talk to you about our friends over at FreemanMazda.net, because as always, we must discuss the people who make this show possible and that have had a family-owned business for over 65 years. We're talking about Freeman Mazda, who you can visit over at Irving, Texas in their car dealership, or you can check out their website over at freemanmazda.net. In there, you can browse through their wide range of new and used vehicles. You can also see the features of every car. You can also see pictures of the outside and inside of every vehicle. But as we do around this time on Prime Time, I got you. We're going to talk about the ride of the week. In this case, it is the new 2023 Mazda CX-50 2.5S Premium Plus all-wheel drive. This one starts at $38,820. It's got a sunroof, all-wheel drive, a Wi-Fi hotspot, which is obviously a game changer, and heated leather power memory foam seating and a miles per gallon capacity of 24 when you are in the city. That goes up all the way to 30 when you are in the highway. So make sure you check it out over at freemanmazda.net. The ride of the week, once again, at freemanmazda.net. So would you like or dislike this sort of approach? Let me see what you guys have to say. Oh, man, I think I'm going to sneeze. Whew. Nope. Looking like I won't. That always sucks, that feeling, man. But okay, we're fine. We're fine now. All right, wait. Here we go. Dislike for Sugar Daddy Williams. Dislike for Holly and dislike for Charlene Evans. Toxic Tom says, unless we only take tight ends, dislike. Obviously, a little bit of sarcasm in there. Gregory goes with dislike too. Who else we got around here? John goes with I agree, but have to be able to protect him first. So kind of, yes, go with offensive players, but give me an offensive lineman in there. Holly says, oh no. Forget about what Holly says in the YouTube chat. Who else is around here? Like for Gilbert Rodriguez. Katharina says, like for me, they said they want to build around Dak. Go get him targets. And that is fair. That is fair. I like it. I like people are bullying me into reading the comment from Holly. But hey, I like the mock draft. I like the idea of really trying to build that offense. I'm going to say that I would be kind of concerned about leaving behind some high defensive talents, though, on the board. So I would be kind of concerned about that. However, it would make sense to surround Dak Prescott with more weapons. Man, it's hard to look back into 2022 and see what the Cowboys wanted to get out of that draft. And that was mean, physical players. Now you're looking at, because the 49ers bullied them in that wild card game 2 years ago. Now you look at what happened months ago, and you go, oh, they bullied them, but in a different way. They took away CeeDee Lamb, and that was it. The Cowboys lost that game because they were not getting separation. Dak Prescott was not having a good day, and it just went all down the drain. The defense did its job. They did what seemed like an impossible task and stopped Deebo Samuel. They stopped Christian McCaffrey. They stopped George Kittle for the most part. I know you're thinking about one particular play, but for the most part, they stopped Kyle Shanahan's offense, what no one thought was possible. However, the offense just could not get it going. And I'm thinking, like, if the Cowboys front office took such a specific approach to the 2022 NFL draft in which they were looking for that unique trait, which was just overall nastiness, be a nasty player and keep my team from being punched in the mouth like happened in that wildcard game, I'm wondering if they are approaching this 2022 NFL draft, 2023, in a way in which says, we need to get Dak some help. Period. That is the one priority. The board has to fall a certain way, but I could see the Cowboys having that kind of a mentality going into this whole thing. Anyways, some winners and losers of this quote unquote draft class, talking about the mock here. Winner, obviously, you would get Dak Prescott. You would get as a loser, maybe Jake Ferguson, because he's in line to become a starter unless the Cowboys pick somebody at tight end, which seems like it's bound to happen. But if it doesn't happen in the first 2 rounds, maybe Jake Ferguson does not get as much competition at the position. But if they do get a Darnell Washington, even Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid might be the 2 most immediate upgrades at the position. But Ferguson is not going to have the sole starting job. At the very least, he's likely to have to compete for it. And if Sam Laporta is drafted in the 2nd round, then that would be the case. I would look at him as a loser out of that pick. Dak Prescott as an obvious winner. I think that CeeDee Lamb would be a winner, though, because contrary to what would happen at tight end, getting him Quentin Johnson is getting him more help in terms of what happens with the pass coverage for the opposing team. He would get friendlier looks. He would not be as easily double teamed, bracket, whatever you want to call it. CeeDee Lamb would get friendlier looks, so I would call him a winner as well in there. But anyways, Sugar says defense wins championships. And listen, I grew up hearing that all my life in every sport too, like not even in football. That's kind of being disproven though. So I wouldn't mind if the Cowboys go all in on offense trying to build a better team. And when I say it's been disproven, over the last few years, you have gotten teams that are become champions with top 5 offenses or top 5 defenses. One of the two. That is the one thing that, in my opinion, you do need to win a championship. A legitimately elite unit. I would much rather have an elite defense or an elite offense and a decent, like if I have an elite offense, let's call it a decent defense, than have a very good offense and a very good defense, if that makes sense. I would much rather have the elite unit because that is what has made the difference. And when I say over the last few years, I'm talking about over the last 2 decades, maybe. Scorecasting is a great book. They have a chapter on it, so make sure you check it out. Let's see what you guys have to say in the chat. Stephen White says, we need a big X. That could be in the shape of maybe a Quentin Johnson. Not in the shape of a Zay Flowers. Not in the shape of a Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's not falling to number 26, but like just to make the exercise here. Maybe not even in the sense of Jordan Addison, I would say. Quentin Johnson might be the one guy that brings you that big size. Jonathan Mingo as well, but he's not a first-round prospect, not likely at least. Holly says, Mo, I am sorry, but we need a couple of dominant blockers. And if you can get that, I'm going to ask this to Holly. Could that include a tight end too? Like, could it be an offensive lineman and a tight end? I do think that offensive line is kind of a need that I'm very scared about. I'm very scared about the offensive line. Because if this is the way the Cowboys go, and they go wide receiver, tight end, and running back, even if those are the best players available, I would be pretty worried about what's going on with my offensive line. Because and we had an index card show about it. We had some fun with it. I just think there's a huge void at left guard right now. And I don't know who's going to play it. I don't know who's going to be your left guard. I don't know how I would feel about Terrence Steele being it. Maybe that's just smoke screens being thrown around. Does not look positive, though. Does not look promising is the word. Anyways, you could say that in that way, the offensive linemen could be losers out of that mock draft from MEl Kiper and Todd McShay. The fact that they're not getting help at guard. And you know what they say? You're only as good as your worst offensive lineman, which is obviously the case most of the times when you are facing a monster on the opposite defense that can line up everywhere. Like, for example, Micah, maybe Aaron Donalds, all of that. Josh Ball is already a loser, says Toxic Tom. John says Peters is 40. Tyron Smith is coming off an injury. May I add, Terrence Steele might not be ready to go right away. Might I add, the fact that Tyler Viadish is good. He had a good 2022, but also it's not like he's on the same tier as Zach Martin and maybe Tyron Smith in his prime, that kind of stuff. Like, he's a guy that needs help, in my opinion. If you have 2-3 question marks on your offensive line, that's not something to be excited about. So I see all of you saying that the Cowboys need offensive line. I agree with it too. It's just a matter of what's on the board as well when you are on the clock. And kind of frustrating that the Cowboys did this in back-to-back years. I kind of hate that personally. The Cowboys let Connor Williams walk. Say what you want about Connor Williams. I will pound the table time and time again with this. He was a starting caliber player, period. You don't want to say he was good. You don't want to say he was very good. At the very least, he was solid. And solid in the NFL is not an insult. You need solid players to win in the NFL. You need solid players to build a roster. Most of your players are average, and that is fine. So that is why the word replacement exists, like in wins above replacement, because maybe a replacement player is not what you want. An average player, it's part of your roster. So they got rid of Connor Williams, who was a starter, and then they didn't bring back Connor McGovern, who I didn't love personally, but still, he was a starter for your team. So it kind of is a little bit frustrating that back-to-back years the Cowboys have willingly created a need at left guard. We'll see how that plays out anyways. Moving on a little bit here on the show, and we're going to get more in depth on this on tomorrow night's show, which will be a little bit differently. I'll explain why when we get to the one cool thing. I've got 3 cool things. I'm going to cheat a little bit when we get to that segment. For those of you who are new to the show, you can start thinking about yours. That is our feel-good segment in which we all share one cool thing, maybe a bit of news, etc. Something personal, professional, sports-related, or not sports-related, whatever you want it to be. So start thinking about that before we get to the one cool thing. But Dak Prescott said the following in an Adam Schefter podcast. He said it about he said it about Ezekiel Elliott. I have not listened to the full interview myself. I will later tonight. But John Machota from The Athletic tweeted this quote out in which Dak Prescott is quoted saying, "That sure would be nice," when asked about the possibility of Ezekiel Elliott returning to the Cowboys. There are a lot of people, not only on the team, but in the organization, that would love that. I'm sure Zeke would as well. Hopefully, that could happen. Seems like an innocent quote talking about a teammate, but if you break it down, I think it's interesting. There are a lot of people, not only on the team, but in the organization that would love that. And then this second sentence is key to me. I'm sure that Zeke would as well. Zeke won't feel bad about the Cowboys wanting to release him. He wouldn't feel bad about being brought back on a cheaper deal. And, Dak and Zeke are kind of best friends. It's not like he's talking about just any other teammate. And what I'm most curious about is, and I see you, and we'll talk about it tomorrow night, actually. I see what John says, what somebody else said. Who else was it? John said, Zeke's numbers dropped the last 5 years, right? Just make Zeke a fullback, says Mark Aaron. Toxic Tom says, I've been over 6 since 2016. Forget about what you think of Zeke's numbers and forget about what I think of Zeke's numbers, what the team thinks of Zeke's numbers. Forget about all of that, about whether the Cowboys should have drafted Jalen Ramsey, blah, blah, blah. What I'm really curious about with this whole thing is if this is something that Dak Prescott kind of internally pounds the table for and he gets his wish. the way that many other franchise quarterbacks have gotten their wishes on other teams. Very intrigued to see if that is something that Dak would pound the table for, and if he would make it happen. Like, bring back my friend, period. Especially if Dallas walks away from the draft without a day 2 running back. Because if the Cowboys take a day 3 running back, like maybe if it's a 4th rounder, even 5th rounder, but a 6th or 7th round guy might not keep this from happening. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, I agree that offensive line makes you running back, as John says, and all of that. But I'm just curious about Dak Prescott demanding it part of things. We'll talk more about it tomorrow night, but I just wanted to toss it out there because, it's been circling social media, and I didn't want to wait until tomorrow and have it be, quote unquote, old news. I wanted to mention it tonight. I wanted to get that thought out there. Because Dak has been, I don't want to say that he's been insistent on it, but he's been openly and publicly upset about the decision and saying that hopefully that could happen. That is not saying, hey man, in the front office, I'll let them do their thing. I would love for it to happen, but it's not up to me. That is one thing. And usually Dak Prescott is pretty good when it comes to PR and when it comes to being politically correct, all of that. He's oftentimes like, oh yeah, my agent takes care of my contract. Oh yeah, that's the coach's decision. Oh yeah, that's the front office's decision. With this, he's been a little bit different. And obviously, he's his friend and everything, but hopefully that could happen. It's a strong statement, in my opinion. We'll see how it all plays out. Very curious to see what happens there. Let's see here in the chat what you have to say. Tommy915 says, I'm telling you guys, Toxic Tom loves guys until they put a star on their helmets. Give it a year or two and he'll find a reason to hate Micah. And yet, I'm going to call BS on this. Not on Tommy's comment, but on Toxic Tom. And I'm going to do it with love. Toxic Tom knows that I love him and I appreciate him as always. Toxic Tom is emotionally hedging. He loves everyone on the Cowboys and he loves every Cowboy. He's emotionally hedging. Tell me I'm wrong, Toxic Tom. Tell me I am wrong. Because someone that hates all of the Cowboys players and and everything that the Cowboys do does not tune in to multiple Cowboys shows on the daily in April, in May, in June, in July. So I'm on to Toxic here. I'm on to Toxic. This is not the first time that I think about this. I've thought about it for a while. He says facts, Mo. There you go. I figured him out. I have figured Toxic Tom out. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out with Zeke. I hate Jerry Jones though, more than any other player. That part I believe, even more than Kelvin Joseph. There you go. Oh man, I'm glad we got that out of the way. I'm glad we got that out of the way. Anyways, before we get out of here, let's talk about our one cool thing of the week. For those of you who are new to the show, this is where you share one cool thing, whatever you want it to be. It can be something personal, professional, sports related, non-sports related, whatever you want it to be. I've got a couple, maybe 3. So I'm going to cheat a little bit tonight. I'm going to give you 3 cool things. My first one, and this is an NFL related one, sports related one. Damar Hamlin. What a story. We know that he came back. We know that him being okay is the biggest thing that could have happened when it comes to Hamlin. But now we're also figuring out that, he did a lot for the community and will continue to do so for sure. But today, Brandon Beane, Bills general manager, revealed that he was a part of the workouts for the team. He is fully cleared by 3 specialists who are all on the same page on everything. And Damar Hamlin is back after a life-threatening situation. So that is pretty damn cool. Had to say it. One cool thing of the week. There you go. I'm going to read some of yours before I get to my other ones. Texas Rangers baseball, says Mark Aaron, number 1 on the division, if I'm not wrong. John says, just became a grandpa. So that is another cool thing. That is awesome there. Bruce says, one cool thing, I got around to some good yard work today. Stephen White says, Bluebell ice cream is on sale. Oh, man. Was I just got? I might have been got. Damn it. It happens. It will happen every once in a while. See, it's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky. Anyways, Hamlin. Yeah, Hamlin is awesome news. I almost got locked up, but didn't, says Holly. I worry about the dude. He seems like a great guy, says Mark Aaron. I don't want that happening to Hamlin again. Sugar Daddy Williams says Hamlin and the lion emojis. My number 2 cool thing of the week. Oh, I did not got. I did not get got. Toxic Tom, thank you for that. I thought that I was. All right, there you go. My second one cool thing of the week is that I got to do I missed one. I missed one from Joey Vela. Let me try to find that one very quickly. Oh, man, I cannot find it. Oh, I live in South Padre Island, Texas, says Happy Joey Vela, next to SpaceX. And his rocket is going to be crazy if it launches. Man, watching a rocket launch in person seems like a very cool experience. So shout out to you. My number 2 cool thing of the week is I got to do a 5-episode series for the NFL. It's a podcast/video podcast series. It's called The Ghosts of the NFL Draft. And it's kind of like explainer stuff for beginners or kind of casual fans. Also some history stuff. So I talked about the Cowboys computer back in the 60s from Gil Brandt, how it revolutionized the draft world. We talked about Peyton Manning and Tom Brady's drafts, how to evaluate prospects, all of that. It happened on and just to be clear, the NFL in Spanish channel. It's the official channel of the league. It's called Mundo NFL. So it was pretty fun. And then my final one cool thing, and I still have some to read from you, has a lot to do with tomorrow's show. It's not going to be a live show. I'm essentially going to publish the Freeman Mazda Stat of the Week segment. And that's because my girlfriend is graduating from college in a couple of months. And tomorrow night, she's up for an award and she has this big event. She's going to sign the degree, all of that. You guys, if you watched Primetime last year, you kind of saw me go through a similar process. She's up for an award that's going to one-up my award, by the way. I think she's going to win it. So wish Mrs. Mo, as we call her here on Primetime, wish her good luck in the comments. I'll show them to her for sure if she's not already watching. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry for cheating. I just had to bring it up. Let's see some of your one cool things before we get out of here, and we'll get out of here, I promise. Gilbert says, my grandson, Magic Man, and his team, they won, and they're headed to regional. Let's go. That's a one cool thing. John says, coolest thing in here is you, Mo. Hey, I appreciate it, John. I appreciate it a lot. Charlie says, hats off to all the cool things of the week. My grandson started walking, says Tommy915. Let's see if I missed some. Holly says, Mo just changed the name to a bunch of cool things. I'm sorry. I had to do it. It's been a good week. What can we say? Toxic Tom says, no, Mo. You tell your girlfriend this is what comes with the territory of dating a celebrity. She will understand. I don't think she would. And I wouldn't miss it for the world. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody. I know that I cheated a little bit. I know that I cheated. So now that we can close the Three Cool Thing segment, I will see you all tomorrow here on ADC Sports Dallas Prime Time. Thanks so much for tuning in. It was a good show. We have not done a 40-minute show in a while, so kind of felt good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the wishes. I will show her all of them. Thank you, Juan Daniel. Thank you, Tommy, Toxic, Polly, Inez, Mark, Aaron. We want to see you draw a picture of your girlfriend, Mo. I cannot do her like that. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, see you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Central. As always, prime time brought to you by our friends, FreemanMazda.net. Make sure you check out the ride of the week. Nos vemos el día de mañana, 8 p.m. Bye-bye.